Welcome back, Disruptors, to the 71st episode of the Oligarchy Disruptor with your host, Bennett. Today we're going to be talking about how disconnected our leaders are and the evidence that we have that's shown over and over again. Today we're going to be talking about an article and a video showing Stephen Mnuchin talking, or Treasury Secretary Stephen Mnuchin talking to his interviewer, which is Bob Cusack, I believe, from CBS. And they have an exchange about how whether or not a relief bill is needed and when it would be coming or whatnot. So let's go ahead and play that video that I have for you guys. So just give me 1 second here.
2.4 million new jobless claims of unemployment this morning. Several Senate Republicans said yesterday they want to see some action now on the next relief package. Is another package necessary? And if so, when?
Well, let me just comment. First of all, I'm very sympathetic to the people who are not working at no fault of their own, because we've closed down the economy. And as we slowly reopen the economy in a safe way, we'll get people back to work. And in the current CARES package, there's several parts of it that are designed to help those American workers. One is obviously the PPP and getting people back to work through that process. The other is the economic impact payments, which are the direct payments. And then finally, the enhanced unemployment insurance, which we do need to fix the quirk that in certain cases we're actually paying people more than they made. So we need to fix that. We're going to carefully review the next few weeks. I think there is a strong likelihood we will need another bill, but we just have $3 trillion we're pumping into the economy, and we're going to step back for a few weeks and think very clearly how we need to spend more money and if we need to do that.
So that's the end of the video, of course. And as you just heard Stephen Mnuchin say, like, very last words he said, and if we need to do that, so that's what this whole episode is going to be about, is talking about how disconnected our leaders are. If you guys aren't already aware, pretty much everybody that's in the Senate is a millionaire. And now, Bernie Sanders wasn't a millionaire before 2015, but after he started writing a few books and stuff, and with fame comes money, I guess. So he's in the millionaire club now too, if you're interested in that as well. But that's besides the point, because the point is that these people are rich, and because of their level of wealth and comfort and how long they've been there and being career politicians and getting used to that certain lifestyle and getting treated like a congressman or like a senator, and that has led to a disconnect from reality, and that's becoming extremely apparent, especially with this coronavirus crisis that's been ongoing. What we've seen is that the policies that are being put in place, the measures being put in place to protect us, are not going as far as they need to go. They are not doing what they need to be doing. No part, I'm going to say it on every episode if I have to, no part of any relief bill or package that has been passed so far includes the two main issues that Americans have about coronavirus and then this pandemic, right? So, healthcare, right? They have yet to extend Medicare for everybody, or any kind of universal healthcare for all Americans during this time, let alone offer free vaccines when it becomes available. We all know the Republicans and the conservatives hate the word free, and they're going to use it against us when the time comes. And we're seeing that just now. President Donald Trump has just gone contrary to logic and science, and I think nothing shows that more than him taking that hydrochloroquine, I believe it was called. I probably butchered that, but you know what I mean. That drug that was supposed to be treating malaria, and he's taking it to treat COVID and to kind of warded off from himself. So like, I don't really get that, but that's the president that we have, and that's what we kind of live with. Um, but my point being is that these people, because of their level of wealth and like all the comfort, they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing because they don't understand. They simply don't understand how much people are suffering, how much they need to change the system in order for people to prosper. They might think that they're well intentioned, or they might be well intentioned, or they might be thinking that they're doing the right thing, but in reality, we have seen a stagnation in economic growth. We've seen a stagnation in um, wages, income. I believe this is the first generation, or maybe the second generation, now that we have Generation Z, um, that is that has a worse standard of living than the generation before them. So that says something, you know. But let's go ahead and continue because there's really interesting parts of this article that I want to get to, and I can't wait to show you. So I kind of highlighted this part, and if we need to do that, once again, highlighting how Stephen Mnuchin, which is once again one of the wealthy people, of course, the top 1% that we find there. He was a executive at Goldman Sachs. He what else did he do? He has very lucrative investments as well, a very lucrative portfolio, um, along with the rest of President Trump's cabinet. He filled the swamp up. He filled that bitch up. Let me tell you that. But I want to kind of highlight this part of the article here that mentions how Mnuchin's comments, which came during the Hill's Advancing America's Economy Summit, sponsored by Wells Fargo and Siemens, follow those of White House economic advisor Kevin Hassett, who said earlier this week that he thinks another coronavirus bill might not be necessary. So once again, this is coming from like top economic advisors to the president in the White House. Once again, his name is Kevin Hassett, and he thinks that another coronavirus bill might not be necessary. So of course, he's kind of towing the line there with the White House Republicans kind of all pushing the same message that, okay, well, we might do this, but we don't know. Did you see that kind of hesitation when all the banks needed that money, or when big businesses needed money to get bailed out? Who went to save them? The airline industry, the cruise line industry. Who bailed them out? The government bailed them out, and they didn't even have to ask for it. That's the fucked up part, you know. So that's who they're serving, you know. They didn't even have to ask, and they got what they wanted. They got a bailout, and who's footing the bill for that? You and me and everyone in this country that's a citizen and pays taxes. The American taxpayer is footing the bill for this whole thing. Generations and generations to come are going to pay these dues that we're the mistakes that we're making today, and they are massive mistakes. But I guess this is just the country we want to continue on living in, and but the point is that we have to make shit better. Like, we can't just point out the negatives. We have to make shit better. We have to call our senators. We have to write people. We have, like, who fucking writes anymore, right? But we have to write, you know. Let's write a letter to your congressmen, your representatives. Go out, protest. Don't maybe boycott some company that does something that you don't support. There's tons of companies that I'm sure align with something like that. Walmart, I'm sure, is one of those bitches. Amazon, the big ones, you name them, I'm sure they're doing something fucked up. But I wanted to also highlight this part of the article from The Hill as well, mentioning how House Democrats last week passed a $3 trillion relief package. But Senate Republicans have said that the bill is dead on arrival in their chamber. Mitch McConnell kind of keeping his promise there of being the grim reaper of the Senate. for all of the Democrats' ambitious legislation that they kind of push out. So that's why it's kind of like almost like a show for the Democrats to kind of do this, and they can like just inflate the numbers and make people think that they care. In reality, all they know is that it's going to go die in the Senate. I wonder what they would have done if they would have had the Senate as well. My guess, based on history and knowledge of the Democratic Party, is that like if you want to look back in 2008 under President Barack Obama, when the Democrats had the supermajority, they had the White House, the Senate, and the House. What did they do? They passed Obamacare, which yes is like a version of like universal health care, um, but where it falls short, not only it being a failure as a program, but it doesn't cover every single person in this country, no matter what, as a human right. And that's what Medicare for All does, you know? Single payer healthcare, that's the goal. They could have passed that, but what didn't they do? What they chose to do was pass a bill that was lackluster. They couldn't it was a failing program. Republicans hated it. They voted to repeal it, I believe, like over 45 times or something like that. So all they did was create more divisiveness, and they could have just solved the problem. And I'm sure Americans would have loved the program because we're not that that special where we won't take kind of those that help from the government. Like I'm sure everybody was loving those um, direct economic payments that everybody was getting, those $1,200 checks. I'm sure everybody loved that. Imagine getting that every single month, like some countries are giving their citizens right now during this coronavirus pandemic. Countries like Spain are even giving their own citizens UBI payments, direct cash payments, $1,000 a month, every month, permanently permanently. So that's the kind of grassroots, like up, trickle up economics that we really need. Um, but I want to continue with this, saying that some GOP senators have indicated that they want to move quickly on another measure, but Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell has signaled a desire to move more slowly in order to first evaluate what is and isn't working from previous relief bills that were signaled into law. So, one thing I want to highlight here, especially, is that how the GOP senators are kind of like, all right, like this is our turn. Like we know this bill is gonna fall. Like we know we're not gonna pass this. Like let's start our own bill so we can get a jump start on the process. But Mitch McConnell, being the shitbag that he is, um, chose not to do that. He wants to see how everything is going to play out. I'm sure he wants to see if we need that, but the dude has no fucking like. They're saying this if we need that kind, if we need more relief. They're saying that, and like, look what's happening at the same time. 33 basically and a half million Americans filed for unemployment in the 7 weeks ending on May 2nd. I believe that number has now climbed to 35 million, over 35 million. But let's stick to what's said here. But this is just to go to show, like, look at the comparison, guys. Like, check this out. Like, we have here 1970, right? And of course, this is the U.S. Department of Labor. This is where it's coming from, right? So 1970, 1980, 90. Look at all that. So low. It's very low for you guys that are listening. I'll kind of describe the charts for you. 70, 80, 1990, 2000, 2010. They're all they're all low. They're all under the 1 million mark for unemployments. And as soon as we reach 2020, it skyrockets all the way up, almost straight vertical past any line previous before it, at least before or up until 1970. But we know that as a fact, the coronavirus has knocked out more jobs than the Great Depression did in the 30s. So that's a staggering statistic to kind of be aware of. And this is just like kind of like a slap in the face to me. Or not only to me, but to all the American people, I believe, because we see this over and over again, right? Well, like we see the rich and the powerful getting more powerful and more wealthy at the same time, and at the cost of millions of jobs, and not to mention the people that are dying because of coronavirus unnecessarily in the United States. We're the richest, most powerful nation in the history of the world, and what have we done with it? We've used our influence and our money to take over the world, establish an American empire of sorts. And it's a sad reality when we could have chosen to do something much more productive in the service of humanity. But what the United States has chosen to do as the number one spot and as the number one nation in the world, um, is really sad. The reality is really sad and really sobering. Um, but I don't want to get too off topic here. Now, going back to the disconnect, these people in our government, they're pretty much all wealthy. Like Donald Trump himself is a billionaire. He and his cabinet, Wilbur Ross, another billionaire. We were talking about Steve Mnuchin. He was a Goldman Sachs executive. We have Transportation Secretary Elaine Chao. Husband is Mitch McConnell. Um, her dad is a shipping magnate from China. Um, you name it. You go down the list. Wilbur Ross, billionaire. Betsy DeVos, billionaire. Like these people are implementing policies that clearly they have some kind of motive behind it. Like that's why a lot of the real estate taxes and stuff were like really recently modified, because Donald Trump and a lot of the Republicans and the conservatives, and of course some Democrats will also vote with them as well. Not saying that they won't, but they have intention behind that because they receive a lot of money from them or whatnot. But there's a disconnect because of the amount of comfort and wealth that is in our government and the representatives that sit in those seats of power and walk the halls there. So that's what's kind of really sobering and unsettling about the situation, is that the people that were voting into power are getting really comfortable there, and they are implementing policies and talking about issues that most people either don't care about, or they're not serving the will of the people. They're serving the will of the donor class. And that's led to the absolute decimation that we've uh, encountered in recent years, whether or not it's coronavirus, the pandemic that we're facing now, or the Great Recession in 2008, or any other kind of situation like that. This is just exposing coronavirus, basically just exposed the shitty system that the United States has kind of employed and has been displaying and been, of course, at um, like that for many decades. Thanks, guys, and make sure you follow us on Facebook, YouTube, um, um, Instagram. We also have a website where we write articles. Subscribe to um, our articles over there on our website. Thanks so much for tuning in once again, and we'll see you on the next episode.